Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Behind Enemy Lines, our hockey podcast. As always, I'm joined with my good friend and fellow Habs fan, Steve, who's going to lead us right into today's trivia question.
So it's good to be back, Sheldon. Again, action-packed night coming up. And we always try to do trivia that's based on something relevant. And we have Mr. Suzuki on the 96-point threshold, chasing the magic century mark. So we'll dive back into a little bit of history. How many Montreal Canadiens have hit a century mark in scoring? And when was the last time someone did it? So gonna have to dig back a little bit, but
I think most Hab fans have a pretty good idea of who it might be, but there might be some surprises too. Um, with that, we're going to touch on a little bit of everything today. We're going to talk about, the remaining games in our schedule, plus the remaining games in the teams that we're, trying to catch or trying to leave behind. We're going to talk a little bit about potential playoff matchups, who we'd like to see or who we wouldn't like to see. We're also going to talk about some of the individual players, individual stats, Caulfield and Suzuki, chasing their numbers. And then I think we're going to finish it off. We're going to talk about potential playoff lineups, who we think is going to be positioned where, who's going to match up with who. Obviously the big, that type of news, Hage coming, where's he going to slot in? We're going to hit all these topics. So we got a lot to talk about. And so with that, we're going to dig right in. You want to talk about the Montreal Tampa game tonight first to get us started?
yeah, let's talk about the impending, hours from puck drop kind of match. We're 3 o'clock Eastern time, game time tonight in Montreal, 7 o'clock ish. So, it's big for a couple of reasons on the schedule. One, it's a rivalry game. Tampa is that team that seems to give us a little bit of fits physically and talent wise as well. We had a chippy game against them last week, and this is a sort of the redemption game for them based on the loss, because we ended a big winning streak for them at that time. But we're also right there neck and neck with them, tied in the standings, and the 2 points are huge because we're in that push for a playoff seeding. And Buffalo has jumped ahead by 2 points. We're tied with Tampa. I don't think it's going to impact whether or not we fall into a wild card, because I don't think that's the case. But all these things tie into remaining games, who plays who, when, where, and why, and who we end up playing in the playoffs.
Yeah. So I know this, like we've talked about it before. These games are the important games, especially down the stretch drive here. These are 4 point games that are really going to go a long way to determining who's playing who. How have we fared so far this year with Tampa head
So
to head?
this is game 4 for us against Tampa, and we won the last one, so we're 1-2 going into tonight's matchup. We play pretty even. The other teams that we're talking about, Buffalo, who's ahead of them, we're 2-2 against Buffalo, and Boston could come into the mix. They're a division team, but also a wild card seed, and by all accounts of the South Oshawa mathematics, we're probably, if we win the division, would end up playing Boston. So, and we're 2-2 against them as well. So all these top teams that are battling at the top of the conference behind Carolina, we've split with them all across the board. So all close games for the most part. A one-sided victory or a loss here and there, but all tough games. So if we think we're going into the playoffs with any kind of an easy streak, not necessarily there.
Mhm. So it's not really there's no one real team that would be an advantage for us to play because we've swept the series or up 3 games. It all seems to be even, 2-2, that kind of thing. So there's no real advantage one way or another as far as that end of it goes.
Right. The only spot, and it's kind of a horrible way to look at this, is are we better off to finish in third place? If we can't be second, are we better off to play third?
Mhm.
We have the league's best road record.
Yeah,
So if we have a chance to play in the other team's barn an extra
yeah.
game, is that our advantage? Do we put pressure on the proverbial home team if it's not us, because we play so well away from home? So, I don't know if that's a factor. Obviously, the fans want as many games at home as possible. The owners prefer to have the extra revenue at home for the extra game.
Yeah.
And coaching, I'm sure Marty and his staff would prefer to have the line change, extra last minute line change, based on the extra home ice thing. But these are all mind games that are played, and I don't know that a game is won and lost based on who has home ice ultimately. It's a benefit to some degree, but when you play so well away from home, I don't know that it's the same kind of impact.
Mhm. So I think maybe probably the best thing then to do, which is going to be one of the determining factors of who's doing what, is who each of these teams have games against, right? We know Montreal's got coming up, but what do Tampa and Buffalo and even Boston, as you say, have coming up for their last 3 or 4 games each?
Well, Buffalo right now has a 2-point lead, but they played one more game than us in Tampa.
Mhm.
So, we have got to win one of the remaining four just to pull even in points in the same number of games. So Buffalo has 3 games left, Columbus, Chicago, and Dallas. And they play on like a Thursday, Monday, Wednesday. So they play tonight, and then they have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. They have a 3-day rest to get right back in it for the last 2 games. We have the 4 games left, which again, tonight is against Tampa. We also get Columbus, we get the Islanders, and we get Philly. Tampa has 4 games left, the game against us tonight, and then they get Boston, Detroit, and the Rangers. Out of us 3 teams fighting for the division title, we're the only one that has a back-to-back, which shouldn't surprise anybody because we played one of the most amounts of back-to-back games. But we play Saturday, Sunday. We play tonight, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday. So luckily, we don't have tons of travel. It's not like we have a West Coast game to go to. But when you look at Buffalo having the 3 days off with the points in hand, it definitely favors the Sabres to win the division at this point.
Yeah, gives them that much needed rest going down the final stretch.
Right. And one of the other tiebreakers, when we get into the nuts and bolts and the skinny part of all this, it's regulation wins that controls the utmost tiebreaker.
Mhm.
And right now, Buffalo leads out of the 3 teams. So if everything was to stay equal the way it is, Buffalo would win the division because they have the most regulation wins.
Mhm.
So, there's the only way we win is to outright win the division is to have more points and not have to get into a tiebreaker.
Yeah, which can be done. I don't think we're, you know, out of position or not in a realistic shot. We can do it.
We can do it. It just means we probably have to win 3 of the 4 games,
Mhm.
and Buffalo only wins one more game, and Tampa would only win one game, and go from there. Now, again, it's possible, but it's an uphill battle. The bottom line is, if I'm a betting man, we're playing Tampa in the first round of the
Yeah.
playoffs, which just goes to show how important that game is tonight.
Yeah. So if you had to pick, and maybe there's no clear answer, does one team have a favorable schedule over the other? Like of the 4 teams of the remaining games.
Um, well, Tampa has tough games because when you look at who they play, their only per se gimme game on a team not in the playoffs is their last game of the season, and they play the Rangers.
Mhm.
So they play us in Boston, which again we're 2 of the top 5 teams in the conference with Tampa. So they play them. So they could, if we beat them tonight, and Boston was determined to beat them, they've got a tough schedule. Then they get Detroit, who's still fighting for that wild card 2 spot before they would get to settle with the Rangers.
Mhm.
So I think Tampa has the toughest of the teams because they're right in there with every team. Buffalo has the favorable schedule for rest days because now
Mhm.
they'll have after tonight have 3 days off.
Yeah.
So they have 3 days to get that little bit of healing, go over and cure some of the anemic parts of their game at this point, if there's one, and they've been on a heater. So I don't know that they've got tons to work on. So again, there's a reason you play the games because nobody would have saw this coming the first week of the season.
Yeah. Or even into the first couple months, they looked horrible, right? And
Yeah,
then
I
since
mean,
the trade line too, they picked up a lot of good, solid playoff type players as well, which is pretty scary to me, which I think is a perfect segue to lead us into playoff matchups. Um, if the season was to end today,
if the season was to end today,
you'd have Tampa.
Carolina.
sorry, you'd have Tampa playing Montreal, you'd have Pittsburgh playing Philly, but
Yep.
then you'd have Buffalo playing Ottawa, and then you would have Carolina. Sorry,
No.
you'd have Carolina playing Ottawa, and you'd have Buffalo playing Boston. Sorry.
Correct.
Um,
So the way it works, just for clarity, is the Eastern Conference winner, so whatever division winner, gets the weakest wildcard team.
yeah.
And right now, Carolina is in first place. Now, if they should lose the remainder of their games and Buffalo win, theoretically and mathematically, Buffalo could catch. But let's just say the playoffs started tomorrow. Those are your matchups.
Yeah.
So we get Montreal, Tampa in round one. The winner would play the winner of that would play the winner of Boston Buffalo. So you know that there's a dogfight in the East, right?
Yeah.
The Atlantic and the
Yeah.
Eastern Conference. We're setting up for a bloodbath.
Yeah. And
And
on a
as
little bit of a side note, and I know I've heard a lot of people talk about it, this wild card format has to change because right now, as it stands right now, you've got Tampa and Montreal, two 100-point teams. One team is gone, and you could potentially have Boston and Ottawa move on that are probably not going to get 100 points, but you have top contenders. And I think the scenario is even worse out west. You're going to have
it
Dallas and who? You got Dallas.
Dallas and Minnesota will play
Dallas and
against Colorado.
Minnesota are going to be the same thing, and you're going to have a team that can't even get 90 points potentially move on
Well,
because of the format.
if you took Edmonton for example right now, and they're a division leader, so they get a number two seed behind
90
Colorado,
points. Yeah,
and they have
90 points
87
right now.
90 points, and you
Yeah.
put them in the East, that puts them in like eighth spot.
Mhm.
They're getting home ice advantage when they would have to play Carolina in the first round if they were,
Mhm.
so I think it's just an anomaly this year where the East kind of has been the powerhouse across the board. It's not normally this bad.
Yeah.
And we can get into playoff formats and what changes I would like to see, because I'm like you, I don't like the current format.
Mhm.
I think it's terrible when top teams go out, and unless you go back to the 1-8 mentality, 1-8, 2-7, 3-6, 4-5 split. I think that's the only way you solve that. Where teams are reseeded after each round, so strongest always plays weakest. I think that's the way it should be. But under this current format, I'd like to see one change if we want to talk about it. I would like to see the top team in the conference be able to select what wild card team they want to play. I don't like that it's the strongest versus the weakest.
Mhm.
Maybe you want to do it for geographical. If you're better than them, do you care?
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe, like if you look out west, for example, would Colorado prefer to play Nashville or Utah? Maybe they'd like to play Utah because they're close. Save the travel miles and the wear and tear on the time zone change.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's a change I'd like to see. I don't know if it would ever happen, if the board of directors would ever pass it, but I think that would be a huge upside if a team could pick their opponent. And let's be honest, it's only two teams that would get a say because the rest of them are set in stone.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a preference on who you'd like to see Montreal play? Like, personally,
Oh,
I like a prefer a Tampa matchup, but that's for
I
no reasons. I just think it'd be more exciting. I think we'd have a better chance personally, but
and I'll disagree with you. I don't want to play Tampa.
okay.
I like the physical attributes of that game, and I like the run and gun because I think both teams show well, and they would be exciting games. Here's my downfall. Andre Vasilevsky has played 21 regular season games against Montreal. He's 16-4-1.
Mhm.
He owns us. And when the chips are against the wall, if I had to pick a team to play, I want to play against the inexperienced playoff Buffalo Sabres where their goalies aren't playoff tested.
Mhm.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not wrong. There's logic behind it. It makes sense what you're saying. I just think Buffalo is, they picked up a few big players, some heavy hitters, and as much as we all love our Habbies, Washington just ran us right off the rink last year. Now, part of that was, I think, misstep by coaching by keeping Arbor out, and when they brought him back, it really was too late. I think we do have a little bit more of a physical presence this year. I'm just not sure if we can match up with Buffalo as far as the toughness and playoff grit angle that we would need.
Yeah, we have now. So again, when you're talking about matchups and how does it work and subsequent decisions on why you'd want to play. Let's look at the coaches on the other two rosters, right? You have John Cooper in Tampa and you have Lindy Ruff in Buffalo.
Mhm.
Both of them are dynamite coaches. Have, Lindy Ruff this year has turned around a Buffalo Sabres team from, the dumpster fire situation to, the potentially a division winner. He could be up for coach of the year. He won it 20 years ago.
Mhm.
So a guy who's got a pedigree. Do I worry about the Lindy Ruff pedigree? No. I worry about the John Cooper whining pedigree. He's a good coach, but fuck, pardon the language, but he likes to cry, that man.
Mhm.
So every time you turn around, he's crying into the referee's ears. And do they give him the benefit of the doubt because he's had a good team and he's got his star player in Kucherov? And does that impact anything? I think it does because Tampa always seems to get the beneficial calls. I don't know that Buffalo does, but Tampa sure does. So could that be the X factor in the whole thing? Maybe. I just don't want to go there.
Mhm.
Just an opinion.
Well, on the little side note, and I'm going to quickly go on a side note here. You talked about Cooper whining. I watched that play where he's talking about how that penalty box door came open and the player got hurt. You know, that one from
Yeah.
2 or 3 nights ago. I call BS on that. That penalty box door opened about a half inch. I don't even think the player hit the penalty box door. I think he was to the side of it, and there was no. The guy just fell under the boards in a vulnerable position. The door barely moved. The penalty box door had nothing to do with it, and Cooper's whining for the guy to get fired. I just think that's ridiculous. So
Yeah,
just to support your argument, that's all.
that's my point is, now is that going to impact the ultimate score of the game? No, but does he get a beneficial penalty call at home?
Mhm.
Maybe. And we know that playoff series and games can be won or lost on a penalty. And
Mhm.
you like to think that we have the best referees in sport. And I think we do, but this game is played so fast and so quick and so hard that a bad call still happens. They are going to make them. It's a fact of life. That's a human error element that we can't control. I just don't want it to be persuaded in game 4 because that douche nugget has
Yeah.
cried in games 1, 2, and 3. That's all.
Let the teams decide it, not the referees.
Yeah. Or
Uh,
or the coaches.
yeah, via the referees.
Yeah.
Before we move on, we're going to move on to some of the players chasing personal stats here. Did you want to discuss anything more about schedules or playoff matchups or?
No, like I said, we're in tight. We're in the playoffs. Right now, I'll just give a quick statistic. Last year, we were in at 90 points. This year, we're at 102. That's a 13.3% increase from last year.
Mhm.
We talked about, in a previous episode, trade deadline special, that we did nothing. Hard to argue with Hughes and Gorton again. Statistics being, a few weeks down the road since the trade deadline, we did nothing for the second year in a row. We held on a bunch of assets, yet we hit the century mark in points. We're improved from last year. And how do you argue with that ultimately?
Yeah.
Because
Um,
sometimes, we talked about it. Sometimes the best trades you make are the ones you didn't.
yeah.
So
Um, okay. So individual milestones, individual stats. We've got Hudson chasing 80 points, Suzuki chasing 100. Slav's at 69, so he could get 70 or 75 points, I think. But I think the most anticipated one is Caulfield going after 50.
Caulfield's kind of got he's kind of got two milestones that he can hit. And, we've talked about some of these things in the past and, and historically, some of these things. Suzuki's 4 points away from 100. So we'll start at the upper benchmarks first. And it's been quite some time since we've had a 100-point score. And, people have to hold on and wait another 30 minutes for an answer. We've got Caulfield at that 49 goals. So he's on the verge of two milestones, a 50-goal season, but he's only 4 points away from 90.
Mhm.
So it's been a hot minute since we had a 90-point score. And Hudson sitting at 75 points is only 5 points away with 4 games remaining to get 80 points. And like you said, Slav is 1 point away from 70. Now, we talked about having one of the best goalies in the planet that played for us, right? Carry something or other.
Mhm.
Anyways, his name will come to me at another point down the road. But he played it his entire 15-year career in Montreal with one 80-point goal scorer.
Yeah.
One in 15 years. Now, we're on the verge of not only having three, but one of them being a defenseman. Like we are scoring at rates and doing things that are epically not been something we've seen in 20 years in the city. So you know, I would just like to see the focus being on winning hockey games the way they are. Caulfield's been stuck on that. He was on a tear, scoring like 7 games in a row, and came out of nowhere and not went from 40 to pushing 50. The last 2 games, we have spent more time trying to set him up rather than shoot the puck.
Mhm.
Our power play, Slavkovsky, the last game, I think he had 2 wide open nets that he probably could have fired on, trying to pass the puck back across the grain to Caulfield. He's going to get his goal if we play the game.
Yeah. Stick with
You
what
know,
you've been doing.
yeah, I mean, the statistics will take care of itself. And if we get down to the last game of the year, I guess Caulfield's going to play 35 minutes because Marty will do everything he can to get him the goal. And if that's what we have to do, God bless you, go ahead and do it. But right now, let's just play hockey games and stick to the game plan. Win the games where we're supposed to win them. Win them how we're supposed to win them because of what we've done all year long. Let's not rewrite the script. And I know Marty's not telling the players to go out and do this, but we've got to, as a team, be more focus driven on a standard procedure of play, right? Play the game the right way. It'll come.
Yeah. I think it will, and I think I noticed it too the last 2 games, like you said, they were almost seemed like they were trying to set him up or they were not doing the things they would normally do because they're trying to get him the goal. And I appreciate that as a fan, and I'm sure I would appreciate that as a teammate if I was, good enough to be anywhere close to an NHL dressing room. But, uh, but like you say, we have to do stick with what's working and get us the wins first. And when you do that, them goals are naturally going to come and they're not going to need to try to force the issue.
Right. And again, if you build your lead 2 or 3 goals, maybe the other team starts to play a run and gun style, trying to get back into a game, which will cause turnovers lead to odd man rushes, they lead to goals. So or penalties, which then lead to power plays, which lead to goals. So let's just play the game. And we might be on the verge of an odd statistic, and I don't know if it's ever been done. I'm sure somebody has the answer. I don't believe it's been done, but Caulfield could be the first player in NHL history to score 50 goals with 0 empty net goals.
Yes, I believe we've talked about this before.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of one of those sun, the moon, and the stars kind of seasons, and in the next 2 to 4 games, we will celebrate those that get it and lament on those that don't, on the what could have been. But at the end of the day, it's about what the logo on the front does, not what the name on the back is. And ultimately, we can't lose. We can't lose hope on the winning of the games for the reason we need to win them.
Yeah. And one last thing I want to point out, we've talked about this before, but right now we have 11 players on the team with double digit goals. 11 right now we have 11 players with 11 or more goals. And we've got 2 other players that are at 8. So I mean, they could potentially get into that double digit thing. I think that's a great sign of things to come for the team because it's not just one or two
Yeah, we're
players
not a
going.
one man. Yeah,
It's spread out amongst the top 5, 6, 7 players on the team, which bodes well for us in the future.
yeah.
Uh,
Because if I'm not mistaken, you got Matheson and Texier down at the bottom with 8 goals apiece. So it might be hard to get all 13 of them to have 10, but the way we're trucking along, you just never know.
yeah. So on that, let's talk about potential lineups. Who's playing with who. What do you see happening? Obviously, the big news coming is we know after this weekend, and of course, depending on how Michigan does, I think the latest they can go is Sunday if they play in the championship of the Frozen Four. Hage is coming. He's going to sign his ELC, and he'll be getting, potentially two games, I think it is, with the club, and I'm hearing they're going to keep him with the team during the playoff run like they did with Hudson because it's going to help him build on future playoff runs and future exposure to that kind of stuff.
Right. And I'm hearing and reading a lot of the same things. Michigan plays in their Frozen Four semifinal tonight, and we know at this point it's a one and done. Right, you lose, you're out. He has not played a lot in the playoff format. He's nursing an injury. They haven't said. It's college hockey is pretty tight-lipped when it comes to that kind of stuff. But all indications are he's good to go tonight. If they lose, then there's a possibility we see him in the lineup as soon as Saturday, because I think this is just a foregone conclusion. He signs the second he's done. He's going to sign it. That contract's in the dressing room, probably already in his locker. He just has to
Yeah.
pull it out of
The
his.
pen is there
And,
sitting on the paper, just waiting.
yeah, and it'll be by Felicia, nice knowing you, and he'll be in the show,
Yeah.
right? So, for him, he brings an interesting dynamic, sort of like Demidov did last year, right? Demidov came, and the fanfare and the accolades attached to the preview of him making an appearance was what we look for, what we hope for, and really it not just pandered into an opportunity, it pandered into the right opportunity for the right player. Is Hage Demidov? In different ways, I think he is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he's as flashy and he's going to be as lethal, but he's going to be successful in his own way. We know that there's this whole episode around his parents and his dad dying. I would love him to get a game in Montreal. The hard reality is that's not going to happen if Michigan makes it to the Final Four. If they make it to the last game. The only two games we have left at the end of the year are on the road, which is a shame. But where does that slot him in the lineup? Right?
Well,
Because that's the
I've heard
million-dollar
different.
question.
Yeah, I've heard a few different options. But of all the options I've heard, every single one of them has him playing in the top six.
He's going to play in the top six. So if you're Montreal, you've got to put him on line two.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to, unless for one game you're going to go back to put Slavkovsky back down on that second line with Demidov and Kapanen. You say, okay, that's great. We'll play Hage with the top line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not suggesting that Hage is better. I'm just saying you have chemistry if you move Slav down there. And maybe with the other two being dynamic scorers, that you have a little bit more of a built-in trust and a safety net for him to play on the top line.
Yeah.
If he ends up slotting on the second line, then that's a again an all rookie line of Hage and Kapanen and Demidov, and you can't go wrong with that either because Demidov is electric, and we know Hage prefers to shoot as well. So I don't think we can go wrong either way because they're not going to move Caulfield, they're not moving Suzuki. So in my opinion, it's Slav that gets moved if you're moving him, and that would be why.
Yeah.
But either
Well,
way, he is going to bring a dynamic. Does that mean now? I don't think, and this is just an opinion, I don't think, regardless of how he does, I don't think he's dressing in the playoffs unless something changes.
mm-hmm. Well, I'm hearing different. I'm hearing they're going to put him in for the whole thing. Give him a chance to show what he can do. So, I
Well,
mean,
I mean,
I
there's
mean,
pros and
ultimately, time will tell. But
I mean, again, I guess depending on what his injury was, how he feels coming after the two games, because the next step is a third body now has to sit. So the last couple of games we've had Valeno out sick, we've had Doc out sick, we've scratched Galley again, so two forwards right now are sitting and one D-man. Gooley's been out, not well. So Struble and Jacky have both, and Carrier's been hurt. So Engstrom's up. So we have a little bit of balance of power. Do I expect that if Carrier comes back, he's going to be scratched? No, Carrier will be back. He is skating. Um, Engstrom is the first guy to the lineup,
mm-hmm.
and when Carrier comes back, he's in the lineup. It's just whether Struble or Jacky comes out of the lineup because one isn't replacing the other. I would like to see the toughness of Struble and Jacky stay because I think that gives us a different dynamic, especially if we have to play Tampa. But again, those are Marty St. Louis coaching styles. Unfortunately, I like Valeno in the lineup. I like his additional grit and toughness, but I like Texier in the lineup. So then who comes out? Galley has to stay in the lineup. Does Kirby Doc miss time? Does he become the next one? Because then you've got your top six. So your bottom six, are you taking Evans out? Are you taking Anderson out? You don't want Anderson out. He kills penalties. He's big. So and are you, unless you're only going to dress six defensemen, and you're dressing 13 forwards.
Yeah. So I just think of the people that I've heard talking about where he's going to play. I've heard two scenarios. One is they put him up on the wing with Suzuki and Caulfield and Moose Laugh down to the third line, or sorry, to the second line. I don't know that I'm crazy about that idea. I mean, I like the idea maybe, for his first game, the nostalgia of it. Yeah, dabble with it or whatever. But I don't think I like the idea of breaking the top three up. They're on such a groove right now. They're on such a rhythm. They get along, it's not broken, don't fix it, basically, right? I do like the idea of him slotting in on the second line. I've heard a few different scenarios where they put him on the second line and they actually move Kapanen down to center the third or fourth line. Again, I don't know. I mean, there's really only people inside the room behind you there that really know what's going on.
Right.
But I think I like the idea that we have options, but I definitely think he needs to be in the top six. I mean, he's that type of player. I think he can bring that kind of energy and that kind of drive to a line. I just think he fits in there well with Demidov. And either Kapanen or Newhook, whoever they leave there with them.
Right. Yeah, because that's your option. If you move Captain down, New Hook centers that line.
Mhm.
So am I okay with that? Sure. So then what does your third line look like? And what does your fourth line look like? Does Dano drop down to your fourth line centerman and Evans plays the right wing
Mhm.
and Valeno plays the left wing?
Mhm.
Heck, that's three centermen on the fourth line. If they're out there to kill time and not get scored on, I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
But then that means you've got Anderson and Texier on line three with Kapanen. I'm
Mhm.
okay with that. That means Doc's out. So somebody gets the magic bullet where they're told, take one for the team you're sitting.
Yeah,
And it's not going to be an easy decision. I just hope that it's not Kapanen at that point.
yeah. And we're pretty fortunate because we haven't been in the position of this um uh, wealth of
All
talent for probably 30 years, really, if we want to be realistic about it, right? 20 for
right.
sure. So
With all this talent and all guys healthy at the end of the season.
yeah.
And we know where Kirby Doc. I mean, last he
Mhm.
got stick last game and he had to go off and make sure his vagina wasn't hurting.
Mhm.
But he got sticked in the face by Arbor Jacki of all people.
Mhm.
So this
Yeah.
guy just can't seem to buy a break. I mean, he gets broken a lot of things, but he can't buy the right break. And I thought honestly, a game against Florida, he was one of our most effective forwards because he was in there forechecking hard and he was skating hard, throwing his weight around.
Mhm.
And we know that lifestyle for him doesn't last long.
Yeah.
So, it could be you're in one game, you're out the next. I mean, the next four games, including tonight, are going to be telltale. We don't have to do the Hage thing tonight. And if Michigan wins tonight, I guess we don't have to look at that till next week. And maybe a guy's banged up so it doesn't happen.
Mhm.
But it's definitely going to be a tough go for Marty. And maybe once we secure it, maybe a Caulfield sits out a game. Maybe Anderson sits out a game. Maybe Valeno has to take a bullet for a game. I can tell you Suzuki will not come out of the lineup by any stretch of the imagination.
Mhm.
Only reason being, we talked about records, we talked about accolades and accomplishments. Nick Suzuki is the second current NHL Ironman right now. Brett Burns, for those that don't follow NHL all the way across the board, he just played in his thousandth game this week consecutive. Suzuki is a second active Ironman leader
Mhm.
at 533 games.
Wow.
So
Hard to believe
he,
he's played that. He's been around that long already.
7 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that's 80 games a year. That's almost seven full seasons from when he
Wow.
came in and
Yeah.
was called up, and he's been a mainstay ever since.
Yeah.
So he is not coming out of the lineup. So you can sit Kapanen in a game at the end of the year and say rookie, just we just need to spread some minutes. Heal up the body. I just I don't think we really want to touch the top five for what it is. New Hook's come back. He's missed a lot of time. I don't think he's coming out. Definitely the coaching carousel. And if I'm spinning that roulette ball, I don't want to know where it lands in that dressing room because
Mhm.
obviously at this point, every guy next man up wants to play, and nobody wants to take a turn sitting. But as Brendan Gallagher has done professionally his two times this year, if you're asked not to play, you're asked not to play.
Mhm. Um, I like the idea, and I've discussed this before. I'm still convinced we should take uh Jack Eye, make him a winger, throw him on that fourth line. I don't care where you play him. I just think he has to be in the lineup every night. I understand he has defensive liabilities. I get that. It's a difficult position to play. Lord knows I've tried it for years and could never do it. But I have the idea of him and Anderson on a line of who, but who would you put with him to complement that grind and bump line? I heard a discussion today or this week with throwing Bolduc back on that line on the fourth line and basically say, your job is to crash and bang. Let's go. I think that would be a pretty wear and tear fourth line for the playoffs.
Yeah, and again, that's a name we didn't discuss was Bolduc because he's the last guy. So and then and I don't think it's going to be an issue. Patrick Laine hasn't played. He's healthy. He's good to go. He hasn't played. We still got him on an injured list. And you have to be cap compliant now in the playoffs. So I don't see I don't see any part of Laine playing.
Mm-hmm.
Unless Suzuki or Caulfield or somebody making the same money got hurt, I don't see a time where Laine is going to
Touch
keep pitching.
wood, touch wood, touch wood.
Yeah. Um, So yeah, so if you're pulling Hage in and he's going to play, now you're sitting three guys. So we've just gone up and down the list, pick three guys not to play.
Mm-hmm.
Bolduc will be one of them. He's young, right? Is Deneau the guy you want to keep out?
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, surprising stat in the game, the last game we played, it wasn't until about 6 minutes left in the third period, and Deneau had lost every faceoff he had taken. He's the
Wow.
guy we brought in to win
Yeah.
faceoffs.
And
But
he's like religiously on the winning side of face-offs, 55, 60%
yeah,
all the time.
more times than not.
Yeah.
So I think he stays in the lineup for the playoffs because if we have defensive zone draws, I can see scenarios where Suzuki's in to take the draw, Deneau's on the left wing, and Slavkovsky's on the right wing, and then the second we get control of the puck, Deneau's to the bench and Caulfield's on, or vice versa.
Yeah.
They are going to utilize that aspect of him, or maybe he's on with the second line doing that. So again, you go up and down the list. Adding Hage to this just creates another logjam of now we have a fifth line of forwards that aren't going to play. We're going to have the malcontent trio at some point. And if I'm being honest, Gallagher doesn't play in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but he wears his heart and emotion on his sleeve. And I'm sure if he could take the name off the back of his jersey and put all Habs logos across the back, he'd do that too. It's not about him. But unfortunately, what's good for business is you got to dress a certain core, and maybe he draws in one game if we're desperate, but I just don't see that many injuries that forces him to play.
Yeah. I don't know if you're right or wrong. I kind of disagree. I think he's perfect guy to play in the playoffs because he brings that energy. He brings that never quit attitude. He's the kind of guy, he'll run headfirst into the boards to win. He'll do whatever it takes. And I think playoff hockey's a little bit different. We need it. But again, like you say, we've probably got 4, maybe 5 players that you got to sort through, and you're probably going to end up sitting 3 or even 4 forwards, depending on how it all filters out. So, we can sit here, guess, and speculate all day long. But I think the last 2 games, I think you've seen St. Louis juggle a lot of the lines, move different, because I think he's trying to find certain, if he can, find it now early, find certain matchups that might work, or give players a chance to show their mettle before the playoffs come, to earn that playoff spot, which I think is a pretty smart move for the coach. But I think they're doing it to make room for Hage too when he comes.
Yeah, and again, the one time you can afford to juggle and move people around, you do so when you have healthy bodies, right? I mean, you can do it when you're desperate, but you're plug and play.
Mm-hmm.
You're like an old computer, right? Plug and play just to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to do it for value and you're trying to now out coach things, there's some thought process, and you don't want to tinker just for the sake of tinkering, because if it goes wrong, it could cost you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Galley gets a regular spot in the lineup. Maybe Doc's in and out. Maybe Bolduc's in and out. Maybe Veleno's in and out. But that's only 2 guys. You got to pull 2 more out if Hage is in the mix. Maybe Kapanen draws a game out. Maybe it's Evans.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, if we're down to a do or die game, maybe it's Deneau that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we just need a younger set of legs in the lineup. These are Marty St. Louis problems.
Good problem to have, though.
Good problem to have. And,
So,
again, we could put 20 guys like you and I in a room and come up with 20 different scenarios. And none of us may be right.
yeah. Okay. Final thoughts. What do you want to take off on the final thoughts with us?
Final thoughts. These last three games. I mean, I'm gonna throw one not surprise but surprise final thought at the end of this. Um, these games are going to be indicative. We're not falling out of the top three in the division. So, I think if I'm a betting man, I think we're playing Tampa one way or the other. There could be a scenario where Tampa upends Buffalo and we play Buffalo. I don't think we're going to win the division. I don't think that's a realistic
Mhm,
expectation with the schedule and strength of schedule. So if I'm trying to bet on what the best thing, we prepare to play Buffalo or Tampa.
mhm,
Just my opinion. The last four games are going to prove one of two things, right? Either we're playing for points because we're right in it, or we're playing to rest and be prepared. I like the direction we go. I like the upside that we have. And I like the options that we have to go along with it. There are teams, like right now, Tampa's playing without Hedman, big part of their lineup not there. So I like the fact that we're going in healthy. We have the ability to beat any team on any given Sunday, not because that's a silly cliche, because we have the talent and the skill to do so. And I think we could be a sleeper team going into the playoffs.
mhm,
I don't know that teams are betting a lot of money on us to do any damage, but we are still the youngest team in the NHL.
mhm.
You pull out a veteran and put Hage in, we become even younger.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem like the fountain of youth should regenerate an average age roster like this in the NHL, but we did it last year and
Mhm,
we're younger this year and we got more points. So huge problems to have and love it,
mhm,
honestly. I look for balance across the board. I look for, a flexible lineup. I don't think the same lineup's going to play each of the last four games,
mhm,
just my opinion. And as much as it pains me to say it, if that last game that we should play against Philadelphia doesn't mean anything, Sam Montembeau is probably going to play. That's my one unfortunate hot take. He has been a consummate professional. He's stood by this team and he's not dressed and not played. Um, he's still a Montreal Canadian. And if the games don't mean anything, they'll rest both the other guys and let him play that last game of the season if it doesn't impact anything.
mhm. Um, so for me, I have just three or four quick things I want to hit on for final thoughts. One, and most importantly, which has been the goal all year, you know, don't panic, guys. We're in. We've made the playoffs. Let's see what we can do, and let's really enjoy the run as fans, and not get too um, down or put too much pressure on the team and on your expectations. We're not supposed to win the cup. We're supposed to get in, and we've done that. So let's build off of that. Second, I agree with you. I think we will end up playing Tampa Bay. I just think the way the numbers and the schedule work out, I just don't see it happening any other way. I mean, anything's possible. I personally prefer to play Tampa. I think it would be a more exciting game. Um, the line juggling concerns me a little bit because we've been in such a groove, on such a run. The chemistry among the players has been great. And you bring up about Monty coming in, that scares the crap out of me. I'm just afraid of, upsetting the apple cart and causing a problem at the wrong time. Um, but I mean, these guys do it all the time. They're professionals. These guys, they're coaches. They know more about it than you and I, on our best days combined. So it's just a wait and see. It's more of a concern for me. My final thought is excitement for Hage. If there was some way he could get in on that game Saturday night, a home game against Columbus, you know, you want to get hit right in the feels and see something that'll touch you and get you real emotional going is the rookie lap, mom in the building and, all his buddies, whoever else. I just think you know, that's a storybook start to a career that we hope is going to be a long career with Montreal. Um, but, maybe his first home game is in the playoffs, that would be great too. So, that's pretty much my final thoughts. I know you said you had something you wanted to.
Well, it was the whole Monty thing. I mean, I don't want him
Oh,
to
okay.
play. trust. That's not it. But the way Marty has been loyal to him all year, even when he wasn't doing well. If the game absolutely means nothing, I think he gives him a start just to thank him, because I don't think he's back next year. There's not a scenario that's possible that Sam Montembeault is a Montreal Canadian
Yeah.
come training camp next year.
Yeah.
So, as much as and for the regular people that follow us, we have dumped our fair share of unpleasantries on Mr. Montembeault.
Mm.
I'm not about to stop that from a overall skill level.
Mm.
I'm not questioning his passion. I'm just questioning his results.
Yeah.
And I don't want to change that. I don't want the team to all of a sudden feel shell shocked that he's playing, and we go on a bender because we can't win
Mm.
because Monty played. But I just see if we're in that situation, it doesn't matter. I see the coach giving both the Jakes a little bit of a break, and Monty plays the last one in Philly.
Mm.
That's just an opinion.
And to that, seeing you bring up the goaltending, I think that works to our advantage too. Is our goaltenders, especially Dobesh, is getting hot at the right time, going on a run. And we all know from Carey Price from a couple years ago and Patrick Waugh, the legendary '93 Cup. You get a hot goalie that goes on a run, anything's possible. So as long as we're in the playoffs, we have a chance.
Absolutely.
Um, let's go on to the trivia. What do we got for a trivia answer?
So, as you precluded, one of these answers shouldn't surprise you. We have a legendary player that scored 50 goals multiple times. He leads the overall list with 6. Believe it or not, Mr. Guy Lafleur was our resident 50 goal scorer.
Yeah.
Or 100-point scorer. Sorry. He was a 50 goal scorer as well. Legendary 100-point scorer. So we've had 10 100-point seasons in our career, in our franchise. Only 4 different players, because Lafleur had 6.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 were Pete Mahovlich with 2, Steve Shutt with 1, and the very last player to do it, he was a giant, Mr. Mats Naslund, in 1985-86. So we're 40 years this year to the last time a Montreal Canadian has got 100 points in a season.
Excellent. And it surprised me a little bit, only because you think about, I mean, the Richard Trophy named after Richard. We know about his exploits. We know about Beliveau. You would have thought that they would have had 100-point seasons, but they didn't play the number of games that they played. For these guys getting 100 points now, because Guy Lafleur, when they were doing it back in the '70s, what were they playing? We thought they were playing 76 games, 78 games,
76
something like
games,
that.
then it went up to 80 games as
Yeah.
they
So
expanded again, and now
yeah.
we're 84 games, so guys get the extra 4 games to get the 100 points.
Yeah.
But I mean, we traditionally in the last 30 years have been a franchise struggling to have that one bona fide superstar up front, because we've always had one between the pipes.
Yeah.
And that Carey Price fella, he made us look really good and win a lot of hockey games with not a lot of offense when you dig back down in the statistics.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be surprised, not surprised, but again, when that's your answer, that's your answer. It's been a while.
Okay, so that's going to wrap up today's episode of Behind Enemy Lines. Thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoy it as much as we do doing it. So remember, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Comment, let us know. And if you got any thoughts or anything you'd like to hear us discuss, let us know.
Yeah, and if you have your predictions, we're 3 episodes or 3 games away, maybe 3 episodes, 4 episodes. Drop in the comments. Who do you think we're playing? Who would you like to play? Let's hear from you. Let's have a little bit more discussion. We love it as much as you do. But if there's a time to guess, it's now. Now or never.
Okay, so on that, we're going to wrap up, and as typical, Steve's going to finish us off.
Keep your stick on the ice.